Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle and triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. I love it when I start to see people pop on immediately as soon as we start get going. If you are watching this live, if you could share this stream wherever you are at so we can get more eyes on all of the goodness that we're going to be hearing today. But this is the Her Version podcast. We are built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Laurie Seymour. Laurie has had her fair share of challenges. Through it all, she has learned that she doesn't have to follow the rules. She can step into the unknown and find purpose, power, and clarity. Laurie is a two-time international #1 best-selling author, host of the Wisdom Talk radio podcast, executive coach, international trainer, and speaker. She is the founder and CEO of the Baca Institute. She has dedicated her life to showing you how to reliably connect with your energetic, creative intelligence source, dissolving old patterns of difficulty, struggle, and self-sabotage. Almost 25 years ago, Laurie was honored to receive the stewardship of a special energetic technology that accelerates the process of interconnection and ability for quantum creation in individuals and in groups. So excited to have Laurie here with us to share some of her journey, some of the awesomeness that she has going on in her life. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm delighted to be with you, Sabrina. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to a dynamic conversation.
Yes, thank you so much. I so appreciate you taking some time out of your day. So one of the things that I love to dive into, obviously, you have so much going on right now of just so much goodness that you work with in your community, in your world, in your universe. But I would like to take a couple of steps back with you to kind of give people an understanding of yes, and there's been some stuff.
Always has been. I mean, for everybody.
Yes, 100%. So what I'd like is for you to share with us anything that you want regarding a challenge or a struggle or a huge pivot that you had in your life that kind of just moved you and what you learned from that experience.
Oh boy. I want to talk about multiple timelines almost at once.
Okay.
So my father died when I was really, really young, before I was 7. And my mother had 4 kids. Still, well, she's not alive, but there's still the 4 of us alive. And because she didn't have any money supporting her, she was on Social Security. Her whole life was struggle. And that's what, as a young girl, that's what I saw was, oh, life is a struggle. And it's not something that you just receive, and there's all this goodness kind of thing. It's a struggle. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't anything like that. But that sense of life being a struggle permeated everything in my way of being and thinking. And even as I moved on, I became a psychotherapist. I went to graduate school. I did all of these things and became very successful. But the toll that takes on you to see life as something you've got to push through, you've got to keep going. The corollary to that for me was I was alone. and in a lot of ways, somewhere in my being, I didn't feel like I was really loved. And so that was the piece I carried. I mean, that was part of what drew me to going into the field of psychology. Was I was really interested in what's possible for us, and what challenges do we have, but what's really possible? If we don't have to continue to see ourselves as broken or needing fixing, what's here? And so I wanted to explore that. And but and I went into that field. I had a private practice. I was teaching, but it wasn't until I met my teacher, the person who became my teacher, that I had the experience of feeling, like intimately feeling in my body what it was like to be loved. And it wasn't really from another person. That wasn't it. It was that feeling of, "Oh my God, I am loved, and oh my God, I God loves me." I mean, if I can say it that way, but that sense of connecting with presence and feeling that inner teacher, if you will, within me, uh, it just changed every single thing in my life. So where for me, where I had lived in so much self-doubt, like, am I really doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I really okay? Am I really lovable? And mostly feeling like, well, kind of maybe, but maybe not. Um, and that self-doubt was part of the underpinning of everything in my life. That started to just go. When I had that experience, what it showed me, it gave me the feeling of that. It gave me something I could actually hold on to, and not just an idea or a concept, because it has to
Absolutely.
land in your body. It has to be embodied for that to make a change. And once that was there, it's like I never went back. Yeah, I never went back. And I'd kind of tune in and say, well, because doubt would come up, but I had something I could put it up against. This feeling of doubt really doesn't feel very good. This feeling of doubt feels like just it's not true, like it's an old pattern. And I got to see what an old pattern felt like, and then what was really there within me now.
Yeah. You seem like you've had a lot of self-reflection since then.
Even before. I mean, I think self-reflection has been a key part of who I am,
Yeah.
and it continues because there's a lot of change going on in my life right now, and I know that it's through that process of tuning in that I get to see who am I now and what's next, and some of those key things that help to, direct us and guide us for next steps.
Yeah, definitely. When did you step into personal development or personal growth in order to have that self-reflection or that self-awareness? Like, when did that come into play? Was it young or old or middle
Oh, it
or
was young. It was young. I mean, even in high school, there was that part of me that was drawn to that process of self-exploration, and that's what took me into going into the field of psychology at a very early age.
wow.
I mean, going into undergraduate school and feeling like, yeah, okay, this is where I am, and then going to graduate school and, yep, this is right. And I went to and as I went into graduate school, I didn't do that I went in a kind of an alternative way. I mean, I went knowing that I wanted to explore a lot of what was current then. That was, can I say that I was back in the 70s.
Yeah.
So I was exploring all sorts of things that were just coming out and coming into being at that time. And that
Wow.
continued, that process of looking, of reading, of classes, of therapy, of here is this process of self-exploration. And, I couldn't imagine doing it any other way.
Yeah. what how did you jump into this mindset so early? Was it parents? Was it a book you found early on?
Mm,
Was it teachers? Like,
None of the above, I think. I think it was that feeling of I didn't fit in
okay.
and I felt left out. And there's something about that that kind of makes you turn inwards to say, well,
Wow.
okay, if I don't fit in, who the heck am I? And
Yeah.
what is that? And that ongoing feeling of, okay, and yeah, I read a lot. I did read a lot, but it wasn't like there was a book that, turned me on to it. It was more how I was built. I think how I was built and how I came into the world was with this desire to want to know, to want to understand.
Wow. That's awesome. I'm going to say that I haven't really heard that a whole lot as far as
Mm.
it just being intuitively in someone. That is amazing.
Hmm. So that's not how it was for you.
No.
Ah.
Yeah, I had no idea about any of this. It literally just hit me in the face one day. I remember the day. It just hit me
Mhm.
in the face one day, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, wait, there's this whole other world
Yeah.
that I knew nothing about."
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that is fantastic. So I'd like to ask, throughout your journey and the ups and the downs, and as you have been evolving
Mhm.
and learning more and diving in more to all of the different aspects as far as
Mhm.
self-awareness and communication and
Mhm.
self-esteem, confidence, power, voice. What would you say when you are confronted with a dark place or a struggle?
Mhm.
What are the couple of steps or a few steps that you personally take? Because there's people listening right now who are in the middle of a challenge. They don't know anything about what we're talking about. They're brand new to this world. They're stopping here on this video and they're like, I guess I will give it a try. My aunt said blah blah blah. But like, what's the first step? So with your journey, what
Mhm.
do you do when you're coming into a challenge? You can see it coming or you're in the middle of it to mentally go through it, come
Mhm.
out the other end and not sit in like the muck of it for weeks or months or years like some people do.
And it's easy to do, especially if we don't know anything else,
Yeah.
or no one's ever said, "Wait, there is another possibility."
Yeah.
And for me, it's not about like flipping to, "Okay, now I gotta be positive," because, that doesn't do anything that's real.
Yeah.
And I also don't feel like we have to stay forever in the struggle.
Yeah.
But you asked about the steps of that, and that's a great question. Um, for me right now, I'm going through a lot of change. I'm questioning a lot of things. There's been some big life situations that are in the process of changing right now. And what I felt in myself is just this kind of emptiness or void. And in that void, it's like I want to fill it. Like, okay, get busy, do things. But I've learned that this is ultimately a creative place. And by creative, what I don't mean like, okay, I'm going to write a song about it, or it's not even that because it's so empty that all I want to do is cry. And so that's one of the things that I've learned, that when I have that feeling like I don't even know why, but all I want to do is cry, that usually it means that I'm in the void, I'm in this empty place. And that's that in between when something ends and before something else has begun. So it doesn't have form. And because it doesn't have form, there's nothing for our mental self to latch onto, to hold on to.
Yeah.
So I've learned that I have to give myself space, be gentle with myself, not push. like really just like, okay, no, this is what it is. So I'll name it. I'll name it as the void, or I'll name it as this empty in-between place. And I've learned, and I think probably a lot of the people listening to this know, or at least have had the experience of having gone through that, gotten to the other side. But then we forget that we've made it through this kind of empty void space.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if we can
100.
remember that, if we can say, wait a minute, I've been here before, I'll get through it. But let me get curious. So curiosity is a big one for me, because part of it being a void is that we're stepping into something that's not known. We don't know yet. And that's really how I feel right now in my life. Is I keep saying, I don't know a thing. I don't know. And
Yes.
if I try and manufacture knowing from this place, I'm going to miss out on what's possible. And I actually am curious and interested and want to be present for what shows up.
Yes. I love this word that you're using as far as curiosity goes.
Mhm.
And for those that are watching live or possibly on the replay who have maybe never heard of this before, but they're like, ooh, okay, wait, what? Can
Yeah.
you expand on that a little bit? What does it mean? What is the power in being curious?
Ooh, I love that question. The power in being curious is that we open up to what we don't already know. We've been trained to be, mostly this mental being. We're taught in school. We don't pay attention to feelings. We don't pay attention to our inner wisdom or our inner voice. And that's a huge thing for me. So if you're in that place of, well, this is how I've always done things, those are the patterns. And if I say, well, wait a minute, what if? And I allow that question to kind of play in me. What if there was something else? What if there were something more? What if there was something different? And it opens the door. Curiosity is such a powerful force because it opens the door to you going beyond what you already know. And for me, that's the quantum field, when we start to step into the place of connecting with the unknown and making it known. I mean, it's not like it stays unknown or mysterious.
Yeah.
It's just that we have to be willing to realize we don't know everything. I used to think I knew everything. Or at least I wanted to.
Yes, 100. Yeah, I've definitely been in that place before of feeling like I know everything. Now the joy is realizing that I don't know anything. And I mean, yes, and right. And it leaves so much more room for growth, just
Yeah.
recognizing who I am now because of this newfound passion
Mhm.
is only going to get better.
Yeah. Yes, and it does. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean we don't go through those
Yeah.
moments where, God, everything feels like crap.
Yeah.
It does mean, though, that we get to have a bigger picture that we get to explore and live
Yeah.
into and live
Yeah.
into.
Yeah. I love that you're being so kind of open with, hey, I'm going through some stuff right now. I'm going through some transitions right now. So I think it's so important for us to constantly recognize that you can do all the things and you can
Mm,
have stuff set up and you can have had accomplishments. I mean, we were talking about in your intro how you're a 2-time international #1 bestseller. You've got a podcast, you're an executive coach, you're a speaker, like
mhm.
CEO of Baca Institute. There's so many things, and yet you're still going to come up face to face with challenges and with struggles, that big and small, right? Sometimes they're
Mhm.
just little things, and then
Right.
sometimes they are big things. Can you talk about some points in your personal life or maybe even your career where there was some real humbling that had to happen, where you actually were like, wow, I can't believe this is happening to me right now? Because I think sometimes people think that you don't understand, Laurie, because you know what I mean? Because like you would look at all the
Yeah.
stuff you've done. So like you don't
Right.
even get it. You don't even understand. What's something with within your professional business or your personal business where
Yeah.
you're just like, this sucks.
I two things about that. One is that all of those things are just things, first of all, first and foremost, because they are not who I am. Yeah, there's things I've done and blah, blah, blah. And they become, when I even listen to them, I go, who, what? So I want to go back to it another time. And it's been a while, and it's not that I don't have anything current, but it's the one that popped up and it's a big one.
Yeah.
So I was what I felt was happily married,
Okay.
had a young daughter. It had been a long time coming. We were married for many years before I got pregnant. And I'm not going to go through the details of the whole process because that's too long. But I came to a point where I knew I had to leave.
Okay.
And I was a therapist. I did a lot of couples and relationship counseling. And there were all these things that I didn't see. It was really like, oh, really? Really? It was like somewhere the lights came on, my ability to really see what was happening in the relationship came on, and I couldn't be there anymore. And he had come through this major health crisis, so how could I leave? All of that. And as I went inside and connected with that truth inside myself, I had no choice, is what it felt like. I mean, of course I did, but the choice was for me to follow that inner guidance. And the inner guidance was, it's time to go.
Wow.
And I remember that moment of taking a walk in the neighborhood with him and not knowing that I was going to say anything at all, but that I suddenly gave voice to, I need to leave. And it was such a moment it was like the energy just came through me, and I allowed it to, and I allowed myself to speak what I needed to speak. And I mean, that's what I teach. That's what my whole life is built on. But this is a long, long time ago. And the humbling part, the part that relates to what you were just asking about is, how could I not have seen that? It's like I bought into the vision that everybody had of our relationship. And I didn't, and I wasn't acknowledging what was true for me. And ultimately what was true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I think it was just last week, I was doing our support group. We have a support group every Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. And I read a meditation on letting go. And the premise of the meditation was, there's times when there's things in our life that are heavy that we're kind of like putting up with.
Mm-hmm.
And we hit a point where you don't have to ask anybody. You don't have to discuss it. You don't have to look anything up. You don't have to research anything. You don't have to tell anybody. And you can literally just let go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's so profound.
Yeah.
And it is simple and not easy.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for adding that part. That's probably the most important part there, the asterisk. Yes. Not easy. Not easy. None of this is.
Until we start to move in the energy of it. And then what I've experienced is there's all kinds of support. in the other dimensions and in real life,
Yeah.
for taking those steps, taking the stand for yourself, moving forward because this is what you're about. This is
Yeah.
what you're here for. It's not to appease someone else or please someone else or live into someone else's vision for your life.
Yeah.
It is to
Definitely.
connect with the truth of who you are and live that.
Absolutely. Can we talk a little bit about limiting beliefs?
Sure.
Now, a lot of people haven't heard of this. A lot of people have no idea what it even means. So I'd love it if you can maybe talk a little bit on that, and then maybe tell us, a limiting belief that you have had in your life that you've had to let go of, or that you've had to continuously work on.
Well, what I spoke about in the beginning about life being a struggle, that's a limiting belief because it was based on what I saw. So I could say it was based on reality. And that's usually how we stay tied with our limiting beliefs is, well, but look out there. There's the proof.
Yeah.
And because we are part of a quantum universe, and without going too far down into that, we live in this holographic universe, and we are a piece of and a reflection of everything that exists. And so we will draw to us and see manifested in our world that which we believe in.
Mhm.
And beliefs are patterns. They're just patterns. They're not truth. And that's the other thing that I think for my whole life, I've wanted to know what is true. If I'm in a struggle in a relationship, I don't care about being right. I care about let's get to truth. Let's see what is really going on. And because what's really going on at ultimate bottom line, or what's really going to move something, is to know that love always wins, or love
Yeah.
will win if we
Yeah.
allow it, if we allow ourselves to feel that and to know it, and that anything else is a limiting belief, like I'm not capable of loving or I'm not capable of being loved. Those are limiting beliefs. And so if love comes to us while holding that limiting belief, are you going to see it? No. You're going to see something that's a mirror of what you're already expecting to see, because that's how we're trained. And that's how that part of the brain that wants to keep us safe,
Mhm.
that's how it works. It's called the amygdala, and it's that part of the brain that's that fight or flight that says, uh-oh, the mastodon is coming, you better get out of here.
Yeah.
And how long have mastodons been extinct, or the saber-toothed tiger? How long have they been extinct?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter when we hold a limiting belief.
Definitely. Yeah. While you were talking, I don't know why this popped up, but for some reason I thought of, um, I thought of what is that when you, not a stereotype, a superstition.
Oh.
For some reason, while you were talking, I was like, limiting beliefs are a little bit similar to superstitions, because it's like a
Mm.
superstition is only a superstition if you know it's not true.
But you believe it because you believe it to be true.
But if you acknowledge it as being a superstition, then actually you know it's not true.
Ah. So is what you're saying we could call a limiting belief a superstition?
Yeah. I
Or
mean,
an
when
old
you were
wives'
talking,
tale?
that's the first time that's ever happened to me. But like
Yeah,
when you were
yeah.
talking, I was like, actually, if you're calling something a limiting belief, then
Mhm.
you know it's a superstition. Therefore, you know it's not true. It's either a superstition or it's truth.
Ooh.
It
Ooh.
can't be both. Oh,
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
so That's so cool. How did you
Yeah,
do
that's
that?
really something to chew on, isn't it?
I'm gonna have to
Wow.
re-listen to this and listen to how you explained that, because that
Mm.
was so interesting how that just came to me like that.
I love it. I
Um,
love
I
that came.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's so true.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
I love what you said about patterns aren't truths.
Yeah.
No, patterns, not truths.
Both.
Okay, let's talk about that for a second,
Okay.
because that is good.
So, I mean, patterns are just patterns.
Okay.
And it, because I spent so many years as a psychotherapist, what was I doing was working with people's patterns. But if we start to see, oh, that's just a pattern, then I don't need to pull it apart. I don't need to spend the next 10 years of my life excavating the pattern. I can make that shift. And it's an energetic shift. It's like, oh, yeah, I see that. And it doesn't automatically necessarily free us of it,
Okay.
but it gives us a way to get curious about it, back to curiosity,
Yes.
get curious about that pattern. And it's when it comes up and it's when it's there in the present moment, then I can really get curious and say, okay, if you're just a pattern, what's on the other side of that? What is truth? And truth has that physical feeling in your body. If you know what I mean. Okay, maybe people don't. I think it's really important to know what truth feels like in your body so that you have something that you can measure in a way against that old pattern or the recognition of a pattern. Like with self-doubt for me, when self-doubt would come up, and if it still comes up, it doesn't matter. I measure it against what I felt as truth of being loved. That was truth. That was something that every cell in my body was lit up with and resonated with. And so I have that, and when the other feels so diminished, so limiting belief, struggle, all of that, it just feels yucky.
Yeah.
And yuckiness, to use a very particular word, isn't truth.
Yes.
Isn't truth.
Yes. What does truth feel like? There's people that don't
Ooh,
know what does that feel? How do I even
most
know?
I think most people don't. I mean, it's one of the things that I teach in my Inner Guidance Mastery Blueprint, and it's not a concept. You can't get to it through a concept or even
Okay.
just I can describe it, but
Okay.
really for everybody, it's going to be somewhat different in how they come to it and how they relate with it. For me, it is that feeling of such a flow in my body.
Yeah.
So if you and I, Sabrina, are in the middle of an argument and we both are caught in that place of defending ourselves and ego and I'm right, no, I'm right. We get into those places with each other. Not you
Yeah.
and I, 'cause we don't know each
Yeah.
other well enough, but we could.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and because I really am committed to, that doesn't feel good. That place of being in protection or defense, we all know what that feels like. And that does not feel good. There's no flow, there's no trust, there's no relaxation, like no trust in the universe, and there's no love. So that for me is like the anti-truth because I'm caught in that ego way of looking at things.
Yeah.
And when I drop that and I say, well, no, let's go beyond that. Let me be vulnerable. Let
Yeah.
me say what's really true. And I don't mean it's even more than emotion because emotion can keep us locked in patterns. So it's
Yeah.
even going beyond the emotion to that feeling where, oh, my body just relaxed into this. This feels true, and I don't have to defend it. I don't have to explain it. I don't have to protect myself in this place because truth has its own protection.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, when you think of success, you were
Mhm.
talking about feeling good, and we were talking about truth.
Mhm.
Most people that we would talk to are looking for success, whatever that means. For
Mhm.
everyone, it's different.
Mhm.
But that feeling good, that calmness, that, limited anxiety, very little anxiety
Mhm.
equals success. Um, but what does that look like in your life? Like what is happening in your life to get you to that
Mm.
point of feeling
Mm.
successful? So I want to ask for you, right? Not for
Okay.
everybody, because everyone's vision of what success is totally different. But for
Mhm.
you, what does success mean?
Mm. Probably the most fundamental is when I feel connected with that creative flow of life and I'm expressing it. So there's trust in that, like trust in listening to my own inner guidance. Um, there's surrender, which is an interesting word to use. It's surrendering never to another person, or it's not about that. It's surrendering to that life force, um, where there isn't struggle. There may be challenge, and there may be lots I need to do and activity, but it's not that. It's not struggle. It's that creative life force that's just there, and I'm dancing with it. And that for me is if I don't use the word success, but that would be success. And
Fantastic.
it's always in the moment. It's not a one and done. It's how do we take what we're inspired to do and bring it out into the world and make it real.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, a
Like, you
lot of
were
people.
inspired to do this. I know I'm interrupting you, but you were inspired to create this podcast and to do what you were doing. And I just know a little bit about how you came to this, but don't you feel as you do it, the rightness of it?
Oh, yes. Now more so than ever. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's evolved.
Mhm.
I didn't start it for it to be this, but it's become something brilliant. And all based around what I had been building. One of the things that I talk about all the time is I'm always doing in a direction of, but I don't always know where
Mhm.
I'm going.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't. We might have a full picture that comes to us, but
Yeah.
then you have to start from back here and, like, all the different steps, and we have to be willing to be in the moment with it
Yeah.
because things keep changing, things keep evolving, and we have to learn how to stay present with those changes as they happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100. Yeah, I always say it's important to work in limited time. So it's good to have like a long term, like I have a 5-year and a 12-year goal,
Mhm.
but I stick with 90 days
Ah,
because people pivot. We pivot all the
absolutely.
time.
And not only do people pivot, but excuse me, we're part of this whole creative universe. And maybe there's all these other things that need to come into play that we can't see, but that the universe brings something new to us, a month down the road. And if we hold, like, no, I've got to do it this way, the way that came to me to begin with, I hear that all the time. But
Yeah.
as I teach people and how people learn how to be present with the change and the changing energy and the changing flow, then it's like, oh my God, this just took on a whole new life and it's bigger. And it maybe it's not bigger, maybe it's smaller, but there's a new something, a resource, a person, a collaboration that is now here that wasn't here, that I didn't know about when I had that vision to begin with.
Yeah. Um, I know one of the things that you and I have talked about, it was also in your in the intro that I read, is something about following the rules
Mm,
and pivoting from that, or not necessarily going along with maybe what the majority in your world would have
mhm,
appreciated you doing. Speaking to the females listening live, and the males, but there's probably more females watching than males. And for those of you on the replay, if you could hashtag replay right now, wherever you're at, so we can see where you're at, we can send you some
mhm,
love. So females watching right now who are dealing with other people's opinions,
mm,
other people's rules. What did you do? How did you step up into, yeah, I'm not going to do that?
mm.
How are you able to do that? Because it's scary. Sometimes you're hurting your mom's feelings.
Oh, for sure. In the early days, how I would deal with it was just not to confront, just to kind of go around, the backside of things and just do what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
But ultimately, that's, you don't stay a kid very all your whole life, and at some point there is that standing up. And I don't think I really said, "Oh yeah, no, I'm not going to, follow these rules." I don't think it was like that. I didn't have that in me to be flip about it.
Uh-huh.
Um, it was so much more of allowing and developing what felt true to me and felt important, and following the inner voice,
Got it.
following that inner truth.
Yeah.
And because that's what I was studying for, really for decades, was
Mhm.
doing that and practicing that,
Mhm.
that became so much stronger. And so rules, it wasn't even a matter of then of directly confronting, "Oh, I'm not gonna do this or that." It was more about, rather than looking outwards for the validation or what I needed to do, it was turning inwards and trusting that. And trusting that that energy works appropriately. And so my guidance is not gonna tell me to, um, upend something. It it always works appropriately for the whole, is what I wanna
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. I've heard that before as far as taking away someone's, is it like a valid card, the validity? What is that called
Mm.
when, have you heard that before?
Say
The
more.
the valid, I might be saying it wrong though, but when other people aren't necessarily agreeing with the way that you're deciding to lead your life,
Mhm.
we put a lot of value, or we make their
Mhm.
opinion valid in our
Mhm.
world, where they're like, their opinion matters, therefore I am not gonna do what I wanna do because their opinion is
Mhm.
stronger than mine. It's more valid than my opinion. And
Right,
there's this
right.
word verbiage that I've heard where you say to yourself, not necessarily out loud, but you say to yourself, like, I am taking your card away. Like, I'm taking your,
Ah.
but I don't know what it's called. I hate that I'm forgetting
Well,
that.
maybe, I mean, saying I'm taking away your validity card could work.
Validity card. Yeah, I think that might
I
be what it
haven't
is.
heard that, but I understand what you're saying with that. I'm not
Yeah.
making you more important, I'm making me at least as important.
Yes.
And for me, I've made my inner guidance system more important than anything. Getting to know it, getting to develop it, getting to know how to listen to it, to hear it, to follow it.
Yeah.
That's been my guiding light for decades now.
Beautiful. I want to give a quick shout out to those watching live. Thank you so
Mm,
much for being here and for hanging out with
absolutely.
us.
I love
There's
it.
quite a few more of you than when we first started. So, just a quick reminder that if you are watching us live, if you could share this video wherever you're at so we can get some more eyes on this podcast, and Laurie, to be able to help inspire other individuals who are maybe in a spot that's similar to hers. I want to ask Laurie, I know I said a plethora of amazing things that you're doing in your world right now, and of stuff that you have done. But I want to ask, as far as your business goes, what do you do for your business exactly? How do you help all the humans?
How do I help all the humans? I help them help themselves. Well, really, for me, it is about learning that there is this part of you that already knows, and it's about connecting people with that. So I work a lot with energy. I mean, if people are paying attention right now, there is the feeling, there is an energy that's present between you and I and with us. That is that feeling of unconditional love. And when we allow that, and so that's a lot for me of what I do, when we allow that, when we are opened to that, there's transformation takes place naturally. And it's more like remembering takes place naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Remembering the truth of ourselves. And so, I mean, in terms of forms, I work one-on-one with people. I have a twice weekly, what's called Tereya meditation live online. And that's a very lovely way to come and experience the energy, the teaching, a silent meditation, and to get to share also with, what feels like a very intimate group. And I've been doing that for 6 years, over 6 years now, because it's something that people can get to learn about what this all feels like, that feeling of truth in your own body. And then people start with me often in a group program with the Inner Guidance Mastery Blueprint course. And that's a 6-week class that teaches people about how to connect with their own inner guidance.
Mm-hmm.
And that starts to change everything really in your life, from like how you do your job to how you do your relationship to trusting, because it comes down to that place of trusting what it is that your insides are wishing to share with you.
Yeah. Where do you predominantly hang out? Social media wise. Sorry, social media.
Okay.
Where can people find you?
Yeah,
She's like, at the local grocery store. That's no, social
new
media.
best restaurant in town. Yeah. Facebook, LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, Twitter. So I'm in a lot of places. At my podcast, Wisdom Talk Radio, that I get to interview you next week. But it won't go live next week, but I'll be with you and we'll have a different kind of conversation, perhaps.
Yeah.
That's where I hang out.
I love it.
And I work internationally because I love to travel, and and I haven't since before. Well, I've done a little travel, but I haven't done work travel since before the pandemic. And I look forward to getting back to that and spending some time teaching in France and perhaps the UK.
Fantastic. Are you under your name, Laurie Seymour, or is it under your business?
Both. So on LinkedIn, I'm under both, but Laurie Seymour is more where people find me. Beautiful. And I'm under both Laurie Seymour and the Baca Institute on Facebook.
Beautiful. Fantastic. What are your big dreams for your business?
Oh boy, part of being in this void right now is it feels like the dreams are shifting and changing, and I don't know even what they are yet, which is kind of, when you come onto something like this, you're supposed to have something, and I don't. Part of it is about, I know that I'm to be moving about the world more, and I haven't been. I've been pretty much close to home, even though I work online internationally.
Yeah.
But I won't say it's exactly a dream, but more the sense of there are places I need to go and to be. Yeah.
Fantastic. And why do you do what you do?
Because as more people connect with the truth of who they are, one of the things that lights me up more than anything else is as people get to know what their big idea is, that is theirs to bring into the world. And so I do a lot of work with bringing that inspiration into action, because that's how we get to change the world. That's how people get to feel like the real bigness of who they are. And I don't mean we have to be big and talking to thousands of people. It can be they're big in the way of you recognizing the light of who you are. And as people grow into that light or recognize that light, that changes everything on the planet, because what we're doing is we're raising the vibration of the whole planet.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this has been absolutely fantastic.
I've loved being with you. I love how you are and how you ask questions and how you listen and all of that. It's just great.
Thank you.
Mm.
What can people find at the BacInstitute.com?
Lots and lots and lots of things you can read. There's videos, but lots of blogs. I've been, writing for more than 10 years on there. And there's a great quiz, the Quantum Connection quiz, that will teach you, it will show you about what your style is, your way of connecting with the quantum universe. And that sounds pretty, airy and out there, but it's really about how do you use your own creativity in the world? And how do you best use it? What do you need to maybe expand upon or deepen or get to know more about? And what's your natural way, so that you're not fighting against what's natural for who you are?
Yes. Oh, I loved that. Very cool. Is that on the first page?
It is.
Okay.
Right at the top when you land there, it's right there.
Very cool. That's fantastic. Any closing thoughts as we wrap up?
Yeah, actually, it's something I haven't said anything about, and it's the most simple thing in the world, which is our breath, and that our breath is the way of connecting with what's true. It's the way of connecting with the world. And when we take a conscious breath, what we're doing is we're breathing in like the breath of God or the breath of presence, however you want to think about that. And when we realize that, when we really know it, we allow ourselves to receive. And if we can be in that place of receiving, wow.
Fantastic. Great way to close up. I'm sure everybody took a nice deep breath at that moment. I know I did.
Yeah, me too.
That's great. I think it's so
interesting. That breath
interesting.
as light. See the breath as light.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I love it when breath is mentioned anywhere on the podcast or out in the world, because it forces you to take a pause and feel it.
Yeah.
And take a breath and be with it. So
Yeah.
awesome reminder. Always an awesome reminder when we're talking about breath. Well, I so appreciate you being here go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Oh, no. I'm just listening. It was my listening face.
I so appreciate you being here, hanging out with us. Those of you watching live, those of you watching on the replay, thank you so much for hanging out with us and sharing this time with Laurie and I as we spoke about some of her story and some of the goodness that she's bringing into the world today. If you resonated with all the goodness that she shared, make sure you check out her website, the BacaInstitute.com. The website is right above her head area up here, and then also in the description wherever you are watching us at. And then she does hang out on social media. Facebook, LinkedIn sounds like the most active places to find her. We loved connecting people here on this platform so that we can all continue to rise. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us here on Her Version. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast, make sure you like and subscribe. If you have a story to share, check us out at hernation.life to register for a possible podcast. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. As always, do something awesome today. Much love.